Kel Glare served in the Victoria Police from 1957 to 1992 and retired as Chief Commissioner. He served in all ranks except Commander. First Assistant Commissioner of Internal Investigations, he was admitted to a practice as a barrister and a solicitor in 1997, and he's also an active public speaker in relation to policing and the law and community safety as an advocate. He joins us today to talk about the apparent politicisation of the Police Command and its current command, whether they're equipped to rebuild police confidence in its leadership, and is the current leadership the right leadership to take Vicpol into the future? Morning, Kel.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Now, a stellar career, worked your way right through, put in some amazing reforms and brought us modern policing. How is Victoria's Police Command going, in your opinion?
Well, I had high hopes when Shane Patton was appointed, but showing a little disappointment at the moment. I mean, he's had a very difficult time with all the implications of the COVID pandemic and the way that was mishandled by the government. So I think he's had an enormous baptism of fire that would be hard for anyone to deal with, given the drain on resources and all the side issues that have arisen from all of this. So I still have high hopes that the force is now in good hands and we'll see a marked improvement very soon.
Now, in your long and well-regarded career, Kel, were you put under political pressure?
I would not have tolerated anything like that. I would have resigned before I would have succumbed, but I've got to say I was never asked to do anything that I wasn't happy to do. I had complete operational independence, and I guarded that jealously.
Now, we recently spoke to ICook, as a matter of fact, just before you, and there's allegations about some police being involved in the government's, let's say, attempts to cover up on that. How does that sit with you?
I've looked at the evidence in relation to the ICook matter. Personally, I've examined it, and that was my duty at Victoria Police. I fall in the Police Prosecutions Division, and I've prosecuted literally thousands of cases in the Magistrates Court and hundreds of committal proceedings. I've looked at the evidence, and the evidence is so clear of criminal offences by some people that I do not understand why Victoria Police have not laid charges. It simply doesn't make sense. But of course, that arose in the time of Ashton as Chief Commissioner. And I'm just stunned by the fact that criminal charges have not yet been laid.
Now, Kel, Fiona Patton actually said that in the first inquiry, there was an admission of evidence that caused great confusion rather than it being any deliberate attempt to deceive or misguide the inquiry that came out with completely different evidence that was presented in the second inquiry. Now, is that a fair portrayal of the events? Because don't they have the right, the obligation to put exculpatory evidence forward?
Yeah, anyone who gave evidence at the first inquiry, subsequently that evidence is subsequently found to be wrong, had a clear duty to correct the record and to go back and say, look, what I said at the first inquiry, I now retract that. I've now since found other facts that mean that I was mistaken or whatever. None of the people did that. And during the second inquiry, I've got no doubt that people obfuscated and avoided questions and simply lied. And that's certainly unacceptable. But in the end, the second inquiry chaired by Fiona Patton said that, well, it's a matter for Victoria Police to investigate, and if there is evidence of criminal charges, then Victoria Police is the body that should lay those charges. Now, I've seen a good deal of the evidence, and over the years, having formed the Victoria Police Prosecutions Division and been responsible for training prosecutors and having prosecuted literally thousands of cases in the Magistrates Court and hundreds of cases of committals, I think I've got a fair idea of what constitutes evidence. And the evidence was crystal clear that there is criminal offences that have been committed by a number of people. And Victoria Police has not yet laid any charges more than 2.5 years, in fact, coming up towards 3 years after the event. That's utterly unacceptable. They have a responsibility, and if they're not laying charges because of political pressure, then that's abhorrent to the whole system of separation of powers.
Now, it's quite a formidable team, but it's just been boosted, or I'd like to think of the A team, with Robert Richter on board. He's fairly good at cross-examination. He's got a great reputation. How do you think this will stand up in the civil trial?
I had a lot of dealings with Robert Richter. He is a brilliant barrister and a very straight up and down guy. I've got a lot of time for him, and I would think that he would have made, his presence will make a number of people very, very nervous, because he is absolutely brilliant at what he does. And I wouldn't like to be sitting in the witness box telling lies while Robert Richter is cross-examining me, I can tell you that.
I think you once rightfully and descriptively referred to it as sphincter tightening, being cross-examined by Robert Richter.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real boost in this scandal to have someone like Robert Richter come on board, and my understanding is he's acting pro bono. He's incensed by what he's seen as to what's happened to Ian Cook and his business, as everyone should be, because he's been treated utterly abysmally and unfairly and unlawfully. And yes, it's great to have someone like Robert Richter on board.
Right. Now, tell us about the work you're doing with the Community Advocacy Alliance. What's its purpose and what's its driving force?
Well, our genesis was caused by the fact that Victoria Police had withdrawn its support for things like the Blue Light movement, which was a great avenue for forming good relationships between young people and police. I was incensed when Christine Nixon in 2006 abolished the Police in Schools program that I introduced in 1989, because that was studied by Monash University. They released a report in 2004 saying it was an excellent program producing good results for the youth in terms of police relations. It certainly reduced crime. I thought it would take a long-term effect, but in fact, within 3 or 4 months, the amount of graffiti, vandalism and antisocial behaviour in the areas where police were in schools dropped dramatically, so it had an almost immediate impact. And we decided we should be lobbying Victoria Police and the government to reintroduce those programs and have police reconnect with young people. We predicted there would be a crime tsunami based around largely the Sudanese immigrant, and it's not about their colour or race, it's about their behaviour. And unfortunately, we were right, they were totally disproportionately represented in our crime statistics, and we thought that we could do better for them, that there were ways of including them in all communities' activities and turning young people away from crime. So that's why the CAA started. But then we broadened our scope to be a general advocate for matters that are community issues. We put out an initial 100-point plan for reform of the Victoria Police, and some of those things were taken up. Of course, we were never given any credit for that, but that's fine. We were not looking for kudos. We just wanted change. But there's still a lot to be done. But we didn't just sit on the sidelines and snipe. Every time we criticised, we put up some what we considered to be viable alternative and better way of dealing with various issues. And we've continued to do that. And I think that we have gained a voice in the community. We have a very strong following. We have a good mix of former police and good leading solid citizens. I think we can speak for the community, and we are getting a lot of support. So over the almost 7 years we've been operating, I think we've had an increasingly important part to play in being a voice for the community. And my 84th birthday is not far away, but as far as I'm able, I will continue until such time as we achieve some of our goals.
Well, thanks so much for your lifetime of service, and hopefully it's ongoing for a long time, Kel. Thanks for your time.
Well, you don't stop being a citizen just because you retire from work or whatever. You still remain a citizen. You still should take an interest in community affairs, and I can't keep my big mouth shut.
And I'm glad you can't, Kel. It's a great asset to have. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.